Today, I, Kim Law, will be digging deep into osteoporosis, looking at what is it and what we can do to hopefully prevent it. So firstly, let's have the introduction of osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a disease where the body just doesn't have enough bone density. It's actually a pretty common disease since people will naturally lose our bone density with age. So, it's something that tends to happen to the older individuals. About 200 million people will suffer from osteoporosis globally. So we will lose bone densities with age. We lose calcium with age. That's pretty normal. For many people, as they get older, your doctor might recommend that you do bone density tests just to figure out where exactly you are with the bone density loss. But when you do this sort of test, don't be too concerned about the result. The results show that you have lost bone density because that's normal. It's normal for us to lose bone density with age. You can't expect your bone density to be as you are still in your 20 or your 30, right? In fact, testing for bone density, the DTEX, dual energy X-ray absorption matrix scan, isn't really recommended until you are about 65 years old for women and about 70 years old for men. So it is a while before you have to test your bone density. And it's not something that needs to be done regularly if the results don't show any problem. So frequent test isn't worth it because of the extra radiations, the test that it will give you. So osteoporosis is one of those diseases that take time to build up. And this is sort of a good thing because it also means that we have a long period of time where we can work out to building up our bone density, where we can work to prevent this sort of disease. Because, well, this is normal for us to lose our bone density with age, and it's actually really hard to put back on. So when it comes to osteoporosis, what we want to do is focus on trying to prevent the disease rather than trying to put back our bone density after it happened. So about 1 in 3 women or 1 in 5 men will have the fractures due to osteoporosis in their lifetime. In fact, it can cause more than 8.9 million fractures a year. So breaking bone is a serious problem, especially for the older individuals. Weak bones are likely to break at the hips, spine, or your wrists. But other bones can be broken as well, okay? So one of the fractures that we really want to avoid, that we're really concerned about, our hip fractures. So you might wonder, why is that people are so concerned about hip fractures when it comes to osteoporosis? Well, just think about it. Just look at your own hips. Your own hips is a very deep-seated fracture. It's a ball and a socket fractures. This means that the ball and the socket join, which means that it's actually super stable, okay? So when we are young people, they are very wary to have fracture on their hips. If some young person that come with hip fractures, it's probably likely to because of they have some traumatic accidents, when they have a car accident, or maybe they fell off from the ladder or something like that. You know, it takes a major trauma for a young person to have a hip fracture because the hip is so deeply. It's just like a deep joint in your body, and it's also surrounded by all sorts of connection tissue like the ligaments, the tendons, and all sorts of the muscles that already cover around it. This will helping to protect your hip joint as well. But as you get older, your bone get weaker, and also happen that your reflex gets slower as well. Just think about it. When you are young and you fall, you usually will fall in a way where you're trying to catch yourself or hold something else, or you throw your hands to the back. So that, yes, you might break your wrist. And then instead of your whole body, the force go through to the hips. But when you are getting older, you are lack of this sort of reflex, and you might not able to catch yourself when you fall. So what happens then is, when you fall over, and then all the weight will go through your hips, and you will get a hip fractures there, especially when your bone is really weak. So hip fractures, they usually require major surgery to fix, and they carry with a significant risk as well. And it's also very complications, and it will end up with being like life-threatening. So even it's healed, it can have significant impact on your life as well, and how well someone can get around and still can be independent. So there's about 20% of older people with hip fractures will die within 1 year of breaking their hips, either from the complications from the break itself or from the surgeries required to repair it. And many will require long-term nursing home care. So it is one of those fractures that we are really concerned about. And it is something that we really want to avoid. So when it comes to avoiding, what can we do? A lot of people will turn to calcium pill or this calcium supplement in an effort to avoid this weak bone. However, research shows that calcium supplement can actually cause more harm than good. A lot of people wrongly believe that calcium from supplements will just magically make us in the way that our bone, where our bone we want. That's not necessarily true. In order for the calcium to get to where it needs to be in your bone, it has to pass through our blood vessels first. Multiple studies have shown that calcium supplements do not decrease the risk of fractures like hip fractures. In fact, calcium supplement might increase the risk of health problems such as kidney stone. For example, a majority of kidney stone are calcium kidney stone. So you can increase the risk of kidney stone, colon polyp, and even calcium that build up in your heart arteries. Research has also found that for those who took calcium supplement actually increase their risk of heart attack by nearly 30%. So calcium supplement is not only increase your risk of the heart attack, it can also potentially harm your eye as well. There's a research showing that calcium supplement can increase the risk of age-related macular degenerations. It's a type of eye disease that can eventually lead to blindness. Calcium supplement also come with all sorts of side effects. For example, nausea, vomiting, constipation, increased urination, muscle weakness, bone pain, confusions, lack of energy, irregular heartbeats, kidney stone. So you are taking these sort of supplements and you are putting yourself in all sorts of these risks. What's the benefit here? Is there a lot of benefit to it? I would say not really. So if you are not going to get your calcium from the calcium supplement, from the pill, then where should we getting our calcium from? You should be getting your calcium from your food, from the natural, healthy, wholesome food. For example, all of these dark living greens, soybeans, etc. So if there's not from a pill, then you just need to think of all other food sources where you can get calcium from. But when people are trying to think of foods rich in calcium, what is the very first thing you think of? You just think of milk, isn't it? But milk is far from only source. It's far from the best source. So the better option to get calcium is from this natural wholesome food. For example, almonds, soybeans, living greens, vegetables like spinach, broccoli, cow, beans, lettuce, and even fruits will have calcium as well. Another thing we do have to do is we need to move. Now everyone knows that sitting still like a potato couch is bad for your heart, but it's also really bad for your bone as well. Women who sit more than 9 hours a day have a 50% chance to have a wrist fractures. Now you might think that 9 hours a day is really long, but you think about it. It's not very long at all, especially for people who have an office job, you know. You go at 9 o'clock and then you sit there whole day in front of the computer and then you go back home. You probably sit in your car, you sit in the train or maybe just a little bit or a short distance of walking. And then you get back home. And then you just sit again in front of the TV or on your couch, browsing on your phone. It's really easy to get up to 9 hours a day. You know, let's have a closer look at this calcium supplement. Ask anyone how to prevent bone fractures and they will going to answer, you know, you have to get more calcium. But if you have been paying attention so far, you know that calcium supplements aren't risk-free. And even with those risks, do they actually help your bone at all? Research is suggesting that they don't. Calcium supplements shouldn't be taken with the idea that it will prevent fractures. Another study published in BMJ have found that consuming calcium supplement, they don't reduce the fracture risk in people who are over age of 50. The age group should be the most concerned about fractures. In fact, taking calcium supplement per day only increase bone densities by only 0.7 to 1.8%. That is too low to protect against fractures. So the takeaway message is you shouldn't be taking calcium with the ideas that it's going to prevent your bone fractures. But calcium is still essential for a healthy bone. I'm not saying that you don't need calcium. You still need calcium. We do need calcium for our bone, but we should be looking at this, okay? Should you be taking from the pill? Should you getting your calcium from the supplement? No. You should be getting all of this from the food that you are eating. Alright, when it comes to the food that we are eating as well, when you think about calcium, the food, you shouldn't just think about milk. Milk isn't as healthy for you as a lot of people believe. I believe people believe that because of those advertising on TV. Everyone see that, and it's always said that, oh, milk builds strong bone. Or you see on the package, you can see like a cartoon bones, like things of ×2 more calcium than their competitors, or something like that, alright? So people, they are really connect milk and calcium to strong bone. And plenty of people as well, they want their children to drink a lot of milk because they think that it's nutritious. When in fact, milk isn't very healthy for us overall. There's been a lot of studies that show that milk can actually cause more harm to our health than good. Then you might think of yourself, well, then why do so many nutritionists, why do so many people still recommend that people drink milk or that children should drink milk? You have to think of it along sort of a scale, okay? It's a sliding scale. For some in the research show that milk is actually good for children, especially when they are young. You have to look at this research. A lot of this research was done in a very, very low income area, or area is that just didn't have a lot of money. If they don't have a lot of money, then they don't have a lot of money to give their children the best nutrition that they can get them. So a lot of this study were looking at school lunch, and they show that the school lunch that include things like milk actually result in the kids being healthier. But then you also have to remember that the fact that in this area, when they do this study, it was in a very poor area. So if those kids in the school lunch, that is probably their healthier meal, the most food they have going to have for the day. So in that case, when someone is looking for extra nutrition, when someone is in danger and not getting enough nutrition, and then yes, milk can actually be good for them because they are lacking of this sort of thing. But for us, we living in this wealthy country, and for most of us, we are blessed. We are blessed in the sense that we are not struggling to get nutrition. Our kids aren't struggling to get any nutrition. We have the wealth and we have the ability to find better, healthier choice for ourselves and for our children as well. We are very, very blessed in that way. When we can choose between milk or something healthier, for sure, let's go for the healthier route, right? We are pretty lucky that we get to choose our food, so we can be a bit picky about it. Alright, so for us we are not lacking in nutrition, we are not struggling in nutrition. For a lot of us, we're probably getting more calories than we really need. So we can afford to be picky on this thing. Now, research published in the BMJ and other studies have found that no link between milk consumption and fracture risk. In fact, they found that those who have consumed a lot of milk and other dairy products like cheese and yogurt have the same risk of fractures for those who have a low calcium intake. And then, if you look at the epidemiological studies which looking at the population as a whole, this study have found that countries with the highest rate of osteoporosis are also the people drink most milk and have the most calcium in their diet. This suggests that milk and calcium don't actually protect against fractures. So the connection between dairy consumption and the bone health is almost non-existent. It's just very, very clever marketing. In research done in United States, scientists have also found that over the population that drink the most cow milk and other dairy products, they actually have among the highest rate of osteoporosis and hip fractures later in life. In fact, most recent research show that drinking extra milk does not offer stronger bone or better bone protection. In fact, women who drank a lot of milk had higher fracture risk, and men who drank a lot of milk have higher death, mostly for the heart disease. As milk consumption increased, researchers note that there are no reduced risk of fractures. Research published in the American Journals of Epidemiology has found that even at the young age, that associate was there. So if you drink a lot of milk in your young age, you still end up with an increased risk of hip fractures in your older age. So it's not just for adults, And in the Harvard Nurse Health Studies, look at over 77,000 women in 12 years, a long period of time. They also found that those who consume the most milk, the most dairy product, broke more bond than those who rarely drank milk. So milk doesn't build strong bond. But that's not saying that kids or adults, we don't need calcium. Okay, we need calcium. But this means that we can get calcium from a better, healthy source rather than just those which is more convenient. So you might be thinking, why is this? Why does this happen? Why doesn't milk make bond strong, but it will increase the risk of fractures? Now, a study done in Switzerland and published in the BMJ, we looked over 60,000 women and 45,000 men, and they found that drinking too much of milk, 3 or more glasses a day, was not only associated with the higher risk of mortalities, but also increased the risk of fractures, especially hip fractures. Now, why does this happen? In their study, they asked their participants all sorts of questions about their milk drinking habit. And after adjustment of other variables, they found that women who report drinking 3 or more glasses of milk per day nearly double their risk of death compared to women who drank less than 1 glass per day. So the authors note that D-galactose, commonly found in the milk, has been shown to induce oxidative stress damage and chronic inflammations in anemia. And this change has been associated with diseases like heart disease, cancer, bone loss, and muscle loss in humans. In both men and women, the amount of milk they drank also associated with a higher level of biological stress markers, that's oxidative stress, which is associated with all sorts of chronic diseases. Now, research has shown that in countries with highest rate of osteoporosis, they consume the most milk. Study also shown that the higher the consumption of animal proteins from foods like milk, the greater the calcium loss. One possible explanation is that animal protein is high in sulfur-containing amino acid. In human body, sulfur-containing amino acid is metabolized into sulfuric acid. And the body will try to neutralize this acid by drawing the calcium from the bone. And this calcium is then removed through urine. So with these foods high in sulfur amino acid like egg and milk protein, they might also trigger the parathyroid hormones to release calcium from the bone. This will disturb the calcium balance and contribute to osteoporosis or weak bone because your body is always trying to maintain the balance here. When the balance is off, your body is like, hey bone, I need more calcium. So it will head straight to your bone and then grab it, snatch away the calcium. So this is a possible explanation. So it's not that in multiple human studies, it's really important to ensure a balanced diet, as this imbalance can have various long-term effects on your health. In fact, humans, we don't really need milk, We are the only animal who drink milk naturally out of infancy. We are the only one that drink the milk of other animals as well. In fact, 3/4 of the world population is lactose intolerant, meaning that they can't confidently drink milk. Does that mean that they are automatically unhealthy or that they are going to have a hard time getting calcium in their diet or other nutrition in their diet? No. Of course not. Because there's so many other better options out there. If you look at the worldwide rate of osteoporosis, countries such as Norway, Denmark, and Switzerland, they have the highest numbers of people diagnosed with osteoporosis per capita. So It's not just milk that need to watch out for, but also other things that are supposed to be healthy. For example, we have already covered calcium supplement. Calcium supplement are something that we want to have another thing about it. But there's another thing that we want to think about is things like vitamin A supplement. So in fact, having too much vitamin A isn't very good for us. So at first people will worry about vitamin A because they know that vitamin A can affect the fetus in the pregnant woman and lead to potential birth defect. But now we know that it's also not very good for our bone. Swedish researchers measured vitamin A levels in a samples from 2,300 men who were followed up for 30 years, a long period of time. And they compared the fractures rate between the different groups. The risk of fractures among those who have higher level of vitamin A is nearly 7 times higher than those with a lower level. Harvard Medical School found similar results as well. So it's not only that vitamin A can harm your baby or your bone, it also can potentially lead to your liver damage as well. If you really think about it, you wouldn't ever heard like pregnant women say, oops, I have too many carrots, now my baby is in trouble. Or you never heard someone saying that they have weak bone because they ate too many tomatoes. So all we need is the healthy nutrient. Yes, it is the nutrient that we do need. But it is not something that we want to go straight and take something from the supplement for. When we can get it from the food that we eat, all we have to do is just do a little bit picky about the food that we eat. So if you look at the chart of the annual incidence of the hip fractures in women in various countries, you will notice that in the countries that are more wealthy, if you look at this chart, the red means that they have the high risk of high incidence of hip fractures. The yellow means that they are somewhere in the middle. And the gray means that it's pretty much very low. So if you look at this chart, right? The country who are very, very wealthy, the country who have easy access with things like milk or calcium supplement, they don't go hungry, they have a lot of things, a lot of different supplements and pills to take. That doesn't mean that their bones are stronger. Whereas, if you look at the bottom of the chart, the countries which are more poor, in which a portion of this population might have difficulties getting hold of milk or all of these animals' proteins, and they can't afford of taking supplements like this, they actually don't have a very high risk of fractures at all. So this is not so much on like, this is just something that happened, this is something that happened due to our lifestyle, but that's a good thing. If it's something that happened due to our lifestyle and the choice we made, they also mean that we can prevent it. We can make a different choice to help prevent it in the future. So instead of automatically turning to calcium supplements in order to prevent weak bone, one of the things that we should do is to exercise, walk around. Because when we do exercise, it can prevent our breaking bone. It can build up our muscles. For example, if you look at those super highway, it's always built with the mixtures of things. It's always built with concrete and something like steel. If a highway is built only with concrete, it's not going to last long, right? You know that. It's going to crumble and it's going to break. It's going to give away. It's the same thing with your bone. Just having the calcium in your bone is not enough. So to prevent the osteoporosis, you have to have other things as well. You have to have a strong connecting tissues to support the bone, and you also need to make the connecting tissue strong. And what is that? You need exercise, right? Exercise is what will make the connection tissue strong, and it's also help build up your bone densities. So it's something that we really want to look in. And when we come to osteoporosis, a lot about the preventions, if you just look at the astronaut, astronaut, when they go to the space and then there's no gravity. So because they lost of the gravity and then they lost a lot of calcium from their bone. Because our body is like, well, since you are not using it, so I'm going to use the calcium for something else. So they will lose a lot of calcium. They lose a lot of bone densities. But when they come back to the earth, they are astronauts, right? They have a team of top-notch scientists helping them. The best doctor, the best physiotherapists. They have all the NASAs at the back supporting them. Even with all the medication, even with all the exercise they are going to do, the maximum they can restore the bone density is just about 2% per year. 2% per year. That's not a lot. So when it comes to this, we really want to focus on prevention. We don't want to wait until we have this problem and then we try to fix it, because it's a little bit too late. Exercise and protein is really needed for your bone to stay strong and prevent osteoporosis. I'm not saying that you have to train yourself and go for a marathon. Just take a little bit of exercise is enough. According to a study published by the International Osteoporosis Foundation, for older people with osteoporosis, with diet high in protein can help to reduce their bone loss and fractures risk. More dietary proteins is actually associated with increase of bone strength. Now, a lot of people believe that older individuals don't need a lot of protein as a young adult because they don't need to do exercise much. However, they actually need even more. Older people, they don't tend to exercise due to their fears of falling, or maybe they have painful joint, or maybe they're afraid of injuring themselves. They have poor mobilities, and with this, the muscle mass loss. But with this loss of muscles also come with loss of muscle strength and mobility. This can lead to more falls. More protein and exercise can help prevent this loss of muscle mass and when they come to age. After all, if you don't use it, you will lose it. Everyone has heard this with muscles, but this is also happen with the bone as well. If you don't use your bone, you will lose it. So when it comes to exercise, we want to do this weight-bearing exercise, because this weight-bearing exercise, it put weight through your bone. So you want to lifting weight, okay? You want to put some stress through your bone, because this will trigger your body to think like, there's something that I need to keep it. Or this is something that I need to put more calcium in the bone. Because the bone is like, I need calcium, I need that calcium. Because there's also of stress putting through the bone, and your body will go, okay, I can't start taking the calcium out because I need it there. So a lot of people, including elderly people, they stop exercising because of this, because they have this back joint or back pain. A lot of people that they have back pain, some of them think it's because they are old, it's just something just happened. They think that is because they are born are weak or it's a sign of bad luck. But really, a lot of time back pain isn't necessary because of the bone. It's because of the muscles as well, okay? So if you have back pain, it's actually more common among people who are not physically fit. Exercising and strengthening your back muscles is actually one way to help people reduce back pain. A lot of people think if they have back pain or their joints hurt, then the best thing to do is do nothing and rest and let it heal. When in fact, not moving is actually doing far more harm to your bodies than moving around. If you have back pain, it's better to keep moving and keep exercising. If you're just laying around, wait to get better, you are actually doing more harm for yourself. It's not better that way. The best thing to do is to do more exercise, to strengthen your back muscles, and have to be your daily habit as well. In fact, people who only exercise on the weekend, those sort of weekend warrior, are actually more likely to end up with back pain and other sort of pain, because they think of themselves, I've been lazy for the whole week. And then when they start doing exercise during the weekend, they do it really hard. They are going a little bit too hard. And that strains themselves too much, so that it comes to exercise. It's better to have to be a daily habit. This way, your muscles have time to grow stronger and properly support your back. Alright? So just don't wait around. Another thing that people really want to do that is when they are overweight or obese, then it's really good to start losing that weight. It's not only good for your heart, but also good for your bone as well. Because you think that, your spine is not perfectly straight. is a bit of curve, right? So when you look at protecting your back, you look at protecting this bone in your body, you want to build up this connection tissue as well. Okay, you don't want all the weight just go through this bone. You want your muscles and the connecting tissues to get around to help to take off this stress as well. But in order to do that, you also need to have a good diet to help you to fuel your effort, to have a strong bone and strong muscles, and to get your calcium, to get your protein. You don't have to automatically turn towards the supplements or animal source. Plant source can provide all of the nutrients you need without extra calories, without the extra fat or the cholesterol. So vegetables that contain calcium as well. 1 cup of the whole milk contains about 275 milligrams of calcium, but 1 cup of cooked spinach contains about 245 milligrams of calcium. That's nearly as much as a cup of milk. A cup of collard green contains 268 milligrams of calcium, and 1 cup of soybean contains 550 milligrams of calcium. So you know, a lot of people, they think that vegetables don't have a lot of calcium. But if vegetable didn't contain calcium, then how did elephants or dinosaurs, who they only eat vegetables, how did they grow so big? So you know what? You can get as much calcium as your body needs from the plant sources. And when you are looking at all these plant sources as well, they don't have cholesterol, and they have lower amount of calories, and they don't have extra fat. So milk, calcium pill, soy, you have a look at all of these choices, you know? It's sort of like you judge it for yourself and make a choice. All right, here are some questions you want to ask yourself. Number 1 is, can this help to prevent osteoporosis? When it comes to milk, is it not really more is better? Surprisingly, milk doesn't build strong bone as many believe. So it's actually a lot of research showing that the more milk you drink, the more risk of fractures is, including hip fractures. Then what about calcium supplement? Calcium supplements are the same. It shouldn't be taken with the ideas that it will prevent fractures. A lot of research is showing that taking calcium only increases your bone density by about 0.6 to 1.8%. That's too low to protect against fractures. But what about other things like soy? Researchers from the University of Missouri have found that a soy-based diet can lead to stronger tibia bones, which are the bones in your leg and your shins bones, and improve metabolic functions compared to diet free of soy. In fact, they recommend that women might be able to improve their bone strength and metabolism just by adding more soy-based whole foods into their diet. Researchers from Singapore have also found that there's a strong relationship between soy and fracture risk. They found that soy can reduce the risk of fractures. In Singapore, they followed 63,000 people for over 7.7 years, and they found that women who ate more soy, they had a 21% to 34% reduced risk of fractures compared to women who ate less amount of soy. So this benefit aren't just limited to older women. Younger women also benefit as well. So it's never too late to start. Researchers from Korea and Hong Kong have looked at young women aged 20 to 26 years old and their bone densities. And they found that the more soy they eat, the more dense their bone are. So next thing we want to ask ourselves about the choice of milk, calcium pill or soy. Does it increase the risk of heart disease or prevent heart disease? Now, if you look at the milk, milk contains saturated fat. Researchers suggest that the diet dairy fat is not the best type of fat to consume. A healthy diet pattern should be plant-based and low in saturated fat. Diet in high saturated fat, the sort of fat that you found in the dairy product, can increase the risk of heart disease. If dairy fat is replaced with vegetable fat, which when dairy fat is replaced with the same amount of calories from the plant source, then the risk of heart disease dropped by 10 to 24%. So it's the type of the fat that matters here. It's not just the amount of the calories you eat. So if you look at the calcium supplements as well, researchers have analyzed more than 12,000 people, and they found that the calcium supplement can increase the risk of heart attack by 30%. A study from National Institute of Health looked at over 388,000 people, and they found that the men who took calcium supplements had an increased risk of heart disease, heart attack, and also stroke. But if you look at soil and the heart health are actually very strong linked. The research regarding soy protein and heart health is so solid that the FDA has awarded a health claim, saying that 25 grams of soy protein a day as part of a diet low in saturated fat and cholesterol may reduce the risk of heart disease. So it is one of the healthier plant protein alternatives. When you have to choose between milk, calcium pill, and soy, next thing you want to ask yourself is, does it contain cholesterol? Now, when it comes to milk, people can reduce their blood cholesterol intake by changing the foods that they eat. Diet high in saturated fat, trans fat, and cholesterol are often found in meat and dairy products. It can raise the cholesterol level. Food containing saturated fat are especially dangerous because it can actually trigger your body to produce more cholesterol. Plant food was opposite. They are low in saturated fat and free of cholesterol. Now, one good thing about calcium supplement is at least they don't contain cholesterol. When it comes to soy also don't contain cholesterol. In fact, it can help you to lower your blood cholesterol. Harvard Health published that having about 25 grams of soy per day can lower LDL or what we call the bad cholesterol by 5 to 6%. So plant food can actually help slow the absorption of cholesterol and help to reduce the amount of cholesterol that the liver produces. Thus, these three, milk, calcium pill, and soy, increase or decrease mortality. If you look at milk intake might actually be associated with the higher risk of death. According to the research published in the BMJ, now the researchers found that the higher the milk consumption, the higher risk of death. There's a positive association between the milk and oxidative stress and inflammation, both of which contribute various chronic diseases. Now, if you look at the calcium supplement is associated with higher death rate from the all cause of plus heart disease. But if you look at soy, researchers looked at over 330,000 people, and they found that consuming soy products actually decreased the risk of death from cancer and heart disease. They found that the higher intake of soy was associated with the decreased risk of mortalities from gastric, colorectal, and even lung cancer. Just a tiny increase, just like 10 milligram increase per day of soy isoflavone will decrease the risk of mortalities by 7%. In the study and the research, people who took up the highest amount of soy isoflavones had a 10% lower risk of all-cause mortalities compared to those with a lowest intake. So the next thing we want to ask ourselves among milk, calcium pill, and soy, does it prevent or does it cause cancer? For milk for men, regular consumption of dairy products have been linked to prostate cancer. In women, dairy milk is associated with a greater risk of breast cancer. For women who drink a lot of milk, 2 to 3 cups per day, the risk increased by nearly 80%. So what about calcium supplement? Can calcium supplement do the same? A report published in the Annals of Internal Medicine found that having too much calcium, like taking too much of calcium supplement, is linked to a higher risk of cancer-related death. The American College of Physicians Internal Medicine meeting, participants suggest that it's better to get nutrients from your food rather than just turning automatically to the pill that you take. But what about soy? Researchers have found that soy may reduce the risk of colon, prostate, and breast cancer. Women who regularly consume soy products are less likely to develop breast cancer compared to women who don't consume any soy. In fact, Asian women have 3-fold lower risk of breast cancer compared to Western women. And researchers believe that this is due to high consumption of soy food in the Asian diet compared to the Western diet. Extensive studies done in China show that high soy intake is associated with a decreased risk of premenopausal breast cancer. So really, it's all about the food that we are eating. When it comes to our bodies, any of us tend to think of we are missing something. If we are lacking of some sort of nutrients, then we should take the supplements to fill up the gaps to boost up the level. But in fact, we shouldn't be doing this at our first reaction. Let's not to jump straight into popping the pill for our first move. It should be just looking at our diet, looking and see what caused this nutrients loss. For example, if you are lack of calcium, the first thing you should not do is like automatically jump into the calcium supplement. If you are lack of some sort of vitamin, if you are lacking of some sort of nutrient, it shouldn't be automatically turning to the pill to help you to boost up that level of STEMs. What you should really do is looking in your diet. What is about the diet that lead to the lack of nutrition? Because if you are lacking of nutrition, your diet is the problem here, alright? So you want to look at your diet, make a change to your diet and help you to get more nutrition that you need. If you're just searching for the pill or supplement automatically, you are overwhelming your body with one thing. And that could mess up the balance in your body. So what we want is looking here. We want to really look for the nutritional immunologists. We are looking for the all about the balance. We want to maintain balance within our body. We want to maintain balance in the food that we eat. So if we are lacking of calcium, all you have to do is that you go to look at all the wholesome food out there. You just have to look at the food in the supermarket. You can get a lot of spinach. You can get a lot of soy. You know that can contain calcium. But if you think about it, it's not just calcium. It contains a whole bunch of other nutrients in there as well. That can also benefit effect to our health. And plus, there's also a nutrient inside the wholesome soybean, inside the wholesome bunch of spinach that scientists don't even have the full understanding yet. So when you are eating spinach or soy instead of just a peel, you are getting the calcium you need, but also you are getting all sorts of other nutrients that will do good, also good for your health. Plus, when you are eating this wholesome food, you also avoid all sorts of this side effect as well. For example, if you take the calcium pill, you are putting yourself at the risk things like heart attack or kidney stone. But you will never heard someone say, oh, I have heart attack because I eat too much of spinach. Oh, I have kidney stone because I ate too much of spinach. You know, it doesn't happen like that. More likely it's because, oh, I have heart attack because I never eat spinach. So that's more likely like this, alright? So it's all about looking at your diet. You don't want just take the easy ways. You want to look at the wholesome foods out there. So if you're lacking in nutrients, all you really need to do is just go to the supermarket. You know, there's all thing that you need just right there in the supermarket, on the shelf from the supermarket. We are so lucky it's like that. So when you go to the supermarket, so look in your carts, okay? You don't want all the white border peel. You don't want just have a lot of meat with nothing else. You want also of the green, also of the red, the yellow, the orange and blues. Like you want also of the rainbows, rainbow colors in your carts because that's the best source of our nutrients. So now you know what is the best among milk, calcium pill and soy. Share this informative video to those who need to know the truth. Knowledge is power. Don't forget to hit the like and follow Kim Law's channels. And remember to turn on the bell so you know when the new videos is uploaded weekly. See you again.